Hi, everyone. It's Jeff Munroe from Middlebury, continuing on with the Collector's Tour. It's now the 5th of October, 2024. Yesterday, I was at Dust 5, and now I am back where it all started. This is it. This is Dust number 1, the very first dust collector that I ever deployed back at this location in late June of 2011. I don't know what would have surprised me more back then if you had told me that this collector would still be here in 13 years, or if you had told me that I would have 19 more of these things on mountain summits all through the Intermountain West. Both would have been equally surprising, but the reality is at that time, I didn't even know if this would work or not. I had sketched out the design for these collectors literally on a piece of scrap paper that I had taken from the recycle bin in my office. I passed that on to the machinists with the Science and Technical Support Services at Middlebury, and he was able to build me the first couple of collectors. And I put them out, and lo and behold, they collect dust, and they seem to work really pretty well in this environment. To be clear, other folks had used marble passive samplers before for dust, but nearly always in desert environments. No one had ever tried this. Really high elevation, harsh conditions, below freezing temperatures, lots of ice and snow, lots of precipitation in general. This is a bit of a version 1.0. And here we are with Dust 1, which I'm happy to report has worked great for 13 years. Having a long record allows you to identify things in your data that you couldn't see if you only had a few data points. I talked about this the other day when I discussed how having multiple years of data at Dust 2 allowed me to evaluate correlations between drought severity in the southwestern US and the amount of dust landing high up in the Uinta Mountains here. Another nice thing about having a lot of data is it allows me to answer a really simple question. That is like, how much dust is accumulating at this location on average? If I had 1 year of data, I'd have a number, probably wouldn't be the right number. With 13 years worth of data, I think I have a little bit better handle on how rapidly dust is accumulating here. It's not a lot. Spoiler alert. We get a couple of grams per year, basically, in a collector like this. And the average depositional rate at Dust 1 and similarly located collectors is 3 to 4 grams per meter squared per year. So fraction of an ounce on a square yard every year, if you will. That's not a lot, but remember the dust is not just landing here. It's also landing here and all across this entire landscape. So when we extrapolate it, it starts to sound more significant. It starts to be more significant. 3.5 grams per meter squared per year is about 35 kilograms per hectare per year, or just over 30 pounds per acre per year. That's starting to sound like the rate at which you might fertilize an agricultural field, which is not a bad analogy to have in mind. Another thing that's interesting here at the location of Dust 1 is I think we can see a landscape scale effect of that long-term dust deposition. Behind me, there's some pattern ground, but the landscape here is really pretty flat. There's no bedrock exposed everywhere. It's mostly vegetated. It looks a little bit like a lumpy golf course, I suppose. And several years ago, I brought a ground-penetrating radar unit up here, thanks to my brother for helping with that crazy excursion. And we collected a lot of radar data in the vicinity of Dust 1 and discovered that beneath this relatively smooth surface, there's a really irregular and abrupt bedrock surface. There's lots and lots of kind of jagged points and valleys on the bedrock that you don't see at all here on the ground surface, that's been buried completely or submerged completely by some other material. Some of it is coming from weathering of the bedrock, sure. Some of which is probably volcanic ash, which is arriving from volcanoes elsewhere in the region, but a lot of it is actually the dust. So the dust over time, long periods of time, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, is actually mantling this landscape to the extent that we don't even see the bedrock anymore. Another way of thinking about just how important dust deposition is for the functioning of a geoecological system like this here in the Alpine. So I got to get to work on emptying Dust 1. Thanks for listening. I'll see you at the next collector. Thanks to the Ashley National Forest for permitting this collector to be here for so long. And thanks to the National Science Foundation for their continued support of the Dust Squared project.